Ready?
Hello, and welcome to Rhythm and Pixels, a video game music podcast. Wow, I got a little hype.
You got ecstatic.
Yeah, up there, yeah. This is episode 35-1, and we're your hosts. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
Wow, every week we listen to great video game music from all consoles and all generations.
You were surprised I said my name.
I guess I was. I'm glad you caught that. When you know someone for as long as we have known each other, you pick up every subtle
I do.
little thing.
Yeah.
We're very observant of each other.
Which is weird because I'm not like that with most other people.
No, you shouldn't be.
Like,
no, you shouldn't be, but
hey,
it makes sense.
Like, honestly, like, if he or his wife are mad at me for something, or something seems off, I'm like, something's off.
Yeah, you know it.
I gotta ask. I gotta confirm the offness.
No one says anything. You just look at them, and they're like, oh, snap. Oh, snap.
Something's not kosher.
Something's up.
Something's rotten in Denmark.
But anyway, this is episode 35-1. This is the beginning of our new world, 35.
Swimming. Just keep swimming.
Yeah, this is the water world?
It could be.
This is water world. Nice.
Who starred in Waterworld? It wasn't, I was going to say Kiefer Sutherland.
Costner.
It was Kevin Costner?
Yeah, it was Costner, right?
Yeah, I don't even know. But let's just go with yes, because I don't want to have to look it up to find out, because I'll be sucked in.
To kick off World 35, Water World 35-1, we have
36-1.
35-1.
Gotcha, just testing.
Oh, you're just testing me? Testing the waters?
That's right.
We don't have Kevin Costner. He was coming on the show. We fired Kevin Costner so that we can bring you.
We have his East Coast equivalent.
The East Coast equivalent. Here comes his stunt double, Chris Baines. Thank you so much.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being Kevin Costner's stunt double.
Thanks for matching
Kevin Costner B. Angry old man B. What they credit me as. I have a question for you, Rob.
Yes. Yeah, I'm listening.
You've done that intro so many times.
Yeah.
Do you read from a script, or do you just say it off the top of your head?
It's off the top of my head. There's been a couple of times where I'm like, I lose it. And I don't know what I'm talking about.
And it's funny, like, it becomes routine, because, like, there's been times where I'm like, Rob, you forgot the thing.
Yeah.
Like, what? I'm like, the thing!
I feel like if nothing on the show is fully scripted except for the tracks and the games, so... And even then, like, Pernell throws in, like, whatever.
I Hail Mary all the time.
So I feel like that way the show grows, like, organically outwards. So it sounds familiar, awesome. But it's different than what it was, like, 4 years ago.
I was always curious, because I'm just like, you've been doing this for how many years now? And
7.
I feel like I finally got a good opening in my brain that, like, describes what the show is. So if someone discovers the show and they turn it on, they're like, got it, I don't want this. Got it, I do want this, So, Chris, you have been doing these incredible, like documentary style, like history of retro game videos on YouTube that I've been really, really enjoying. Can you just, like, what the last one you worked on? Can you give a little information about that to our listeners?
Sure. Yeah, I've been doing retro-inspired, retro-themed video game documentaries for the last 2 years. I just hit my 2-year anniversary a week ago, which has been pretty cool.
Awesome.
But I've been covering a lot of different series, from like Ghosts and Goblins to Bionic Commando, Ace Attorney, Gradius, all those different things. And I pretty much just kind of start from the very beginning of where the series, like, kind of its roots and how it kind of was formed. And it's like initial concepts all the way up to where it is in modern day, and just kind of give you the history of each title and kind of like where they got their concepts for, and how everything kind of connects together in this big kind of like historical timeline from point A to point B. So I've been doing that for a while, and it's been a lot of work and a lot of fun, and I've learned a bit and met a lot of great people along the way.
I gotta say, I've learned a lot watching the videos. The last one that's out as of we're recording this episode, is the Bionic Commando episode you did. And there's so much, like, I had no idea the connections between, like, the Super Joe name and Commando. Like, I kind of knew about it, but I never really dived into it before. And I played the original Bionic Commando in the arcade probably when I was like 6 years old at like a Pizza Hut when I was a kid.
Wow.
But like I played it again on the Capcom Collection on the PS4, and I was like, wow, this is very different from the Nintendo. And it's really neat to like see historically where it was started and then where it kind of went off to in your video. I was really interested in that. It was really fun.
I didn't realize just how much of a Western influence it had. Like I knew that there was like a lot of like Western roots there as it kind of like evolved, but I had no idea just how much the Western marketing like kind of pivoted the entire series throughout the years. It was just kind of really interesting.
That's kind of where I was too on that too. But at the same time, it was interesting that so when your video came out, I immediately wanted to get to the point where you talk about Elite Forces, because I remember when that game first came out. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, that was the Game Boy Color Bionic Commando, and it came out after a pretty long hiatus on Bionic Commando games.
Yeah, it was a number of years.
But even then, back then, as young as I was, I still thought something was off because there was like a different name attached to the game. It didn't have like Capcom or anything on it. And I didn't know anything about it back then because there was no video game historian or anything. That was just Nintendo saying, we got a new Bionic Commando, kids. So I was like, I wonder if Chris is going to cover that. And you did, and it was very interesting as to what happened with that game and why it was so different.
I was really upset about that one because it's one of the few games I've covered over the last 2 years that was developed with an English-speaking dev team. And I reached out to like almost every single person on the team to like kind of get some more information, and almost nobody got back to me. I had one of the artists get back to me, and he really didn't seem like he wanted to like talk with me, and he didn't really know too much about the project. But it was like kind of just
he basically gave you enough to go away, so he wasn't very responsive.
Wow, that's a shame. I mean, especially
it just seems like I don't know if it's like these people just get bothered all the time, but
you know what it makes me think about, to be perfectly honest? I could be wrong because I'm clearly talking out of my butt, but I feel like some people that develop games or work on games, they do it as it's their job, but it's also a labor of love. Like, I like what I'm doing. I'm really into it. But then you also get folks who are just like, this is a meal ticket. They're telling us to make this game. I got a task, animate these sprites, get it done. I'm done with it. Like,
yeah, it's the job.
It's the job.
It's the job.
So I can picture you being like, hey, can you talk about Bionic Commando? And the guy's like, oh, that freaking game. I don't care about that game.
Well, in the 90s, yeah. I mean, for a lot of these companies, especially like if you're working with Konami or whatever, it is the job. You know, like it's not
their first game too.
It was their first one?
That company's first game.
Wow.
It was their first game. It was a I believe, I don't know if it was Nintendo's first Western team, because they're based in Washington. So they're not like
correctly. Was it related in some way to DigiPen?
Yeah,
it's a partnership between DigiPen University and Nintendo of America. And they did a lot of games. They did Bionic Commando first. They did, I believe, Ridge Racer 64, the Crystalis port, Pokemon Puzzle League, the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. So they've done a lot.
That last one. For Crystalis, I want to cry. But maybe.
But it's so crazy that that they took like these third-party franchises right off the bat, like Ridge Racer, Bionic Commando, and Crystalis. Like those are their early games that they worked on.
The music on the Ridge Racer 64 was different from every other one in the series, but like it was still like really, really, really good.
But at the same time, the problem with Crystalis, it was different music, but it wasn't good. And that's why I was like, what happened here?
One of the last things I want to say about Bionic Commando is I kept hoping, like, towards the end, you kind of get into, like, oh, like, where else have we seen these characters in the franchise? But I forget the guy's name from the 3D one who's got, like, the dreadlock type looking hair. Spencer? Yeah, Spencer.
Well, they're all the same guy.
Oh, okay. I keep forgetting his name. I don't know.
Rad Spencer.
Super Joe's in the first game, but
he's the one who gets captured, and they go to find Super Joe.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's so Spencer was in Marvel Capcom 3, and he was loved in Marvel Capcom 3.
Really?
Yeah.
He's still loved.
He's still loved. But like there was an Evo. One Evo, I think it was like 2008 or 2009. Top player Combo Fiend used him, and it was like one of the best matches in the finals ever. It was
I hope
so
one of his
fun.
moves he could just like fire his claw into some random place and pull a drum back and just beats a guy with it.
Well, I mean that's a normal move of his actually.
Oh, he does do that.
One of his super moves is that like he grabs him and like he has like a giant arm punch, and like his giant robotic arm takes up like half the screen. but it had like some kind of invincibility because it was a grapple move. So he kept pulling people out of supers, and people were freaking out. It was so much fun.
He goes for the grapple
Marvel
punch.
Capcom 3 was like a big hype game for its time. It's really sad that franchise is gone.
Well, you have Infinite.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I'm joking.
That's never felt the same again. I really wanted to like that one, but there's a lot of Street Fighter
it'll come back.
Like. Yeah,
I think it'll come back one day. I think they're gonna let it rest again, and they'll revitalize it one of these days.
And right now, what we're all hoping for is just Marvel Capcom 2 to be ported anywhere where we can just play it like again on a modern console, because you just can't get it anymore.
I can't believe that it hasn't come out.
Yeah, it was on the 360, and it was a great port on the 360. And then that was the last time. That was the last time we saw it.
The first one hasn't been ported either, has it?
I don't think so. That one I see every once in a while, like on those little arcade 1-up machines, like in places. And I played that a lot when it first came out, but I never really got into it like as much as the second one, though. It was
more to the first one than the second one.
Yeah. It was.
But I still love both of them.
I do too. It was like, wow, I get to play like Ryu against Mega Man. Like that's cool. And then the second one came out, and I was like, no, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. This is my game.
There's so many characters.
So many characters. So
many Ryu sprites.
Bionic. Oh my god. Artwork in that game. I'm not gay. Anyway, that's an episode for another time. This is related to Bionic Commando, related to Marvel vs. Capcom. Those are difficult games. These are very hard games. The arcade version of Bionic Commando especially, very, very difficult. And so this episode is all about games that are very hard, and for me, why we still love them anyway.
Oh, I know why I love them.
Yeah,
I'm a crazy man.
Chris, where do you stand on difficulty in games, and what does that mean to you?
I adore difficult games, which is like why I was so happy that we went with this topic. Just because I think that nowadays there's something kind of lost in a lot of modern games where they don't reward you for kind of like taking the time to like, learn the mechanics and, overcoming these obstacles. It's just like, pay like $5 to get past this thing, or here's the super booster thing that gives you extra experience, or here's like the super like invincibility code you get if you like pay like $10 and buy the DLC pack. Like, I think that there's something lost, and that's not to say that like there's not games out there that aren't difficult. And like the Soul series is a great example, obviously. But I think that so many games nowadays they don't give you time. They don't push you to like learn the game and get better at it through trial and error. It's just like, we don't want them to walk away and play something else, so let's make sure that they can do this easily no matter what. Like,
but it's also, I feel like there's a little bit of that. There's also this general concept of like they want people to just want to be able to blitz a game so they can move on to buy the next game.
Well, there's a bit of that, yeah.
And then like the last thing is just, I've noticed in the community as well, depending on who you talk to, and I'll never understand it, but I give it to people because everybody thinks about things differently. I accept it. But people will say they don't want to work when they play a game. They want to just have fun. And I'm sitting there thinking, but the work in the game is the fun.
Right.
But
from the player perspective, I think I get that. I feel that way sometimes. Sometimes. Rarely. But from a developer's perspective, from a game creator's perspective, sometimes like the idea is they want the narrative to be the focus and not the gameplay. So they get the gameplay kind of out of the way where it's not as complicated, or maybe they walk you through it, and so it's like very like we're handing it to you. So it's more about the narrative.
The funny thing is,
and so there's a lot of that style, but you're right. Like I feel like with the just the amount of games that are available today, I feel like that's become almost like a game style that people kind of gravitate towards. And you're right, now it's like, oh yeah, spend $5 to get more levels like on your mobile game, and like that's a whole other thing on its own.
I also think that there's nothing wrong with having the games that are more narrative focused and easier.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. I'm not saying that like every game should be hard and difficult and just like like the old Ghosts and Goblins games or something like that. I think that there's a space for everything to coexist together. But I do think that you often don't see many games that won't hold your hand with like a myriad of tutorials and not giving you much information, letting you discover it yourself. I think that is a art that has been slowly leaving the game industry over the past decade or two.
I've mentioned this before in other episodes, and I talk about this a lot, but there's a language to video games. And especially in early days, that language was like you could kind of like learning what the game was. And so as kids, we understood the language was platforming. We understood the language was like, overhead shoot 'em ups, and then eventually RPGs. But nowadays, the language of video games is very much like it's more cinematic, right? So like they're kind of walking you through, and there's like cutscenes, and there's people talking, and you're kind of expected to interact with it as you would with a movie sometimes.
And that's why with games like that, I kind of am okay.
That's a new language.
Oh, but I'm kind of okay when games like that do that, because I get the whole push to the next narrative bit.
Yeah,
Last of Us is like that, though you can put it on hard mode and say, well, you're still going to suffer a little.
Playing Horizon, I'm terrible at that game, where I'm like, the narrative sections are incredible. I'm really into the story, and then I get way in over my head, and there's no way I'm going to get past it.
How am I going to stop this?
And so, like, the difficulty there for me becomes a roadblock, but that's just my challenge.
But then I'm not sure if that game has it, but a lot of games will straight up give you a story mode option.
Oh, it does.
Almost.
There's a slider that you can change throughout the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So in that case,
I think that's cool. I'm one of those people that thinks that everyone, like the people that are like, no easy mode, like no, you can't have an easy. Like I think that it's okay. Like accessibility is a good thing.
Very good.
Oh,
I also think that like with the Souls developers with FromSoft choosing not to include a difficulty level, I think that's fine too. I think the developers get to set the tone for what experience they want to give people, and I think the people that are complaining about that, I don't agree with at all. But I think that
it's absolutely a valid choice, because that is their language to their game. Right?
Their language is we want all players to experience the same challenges.
Yes.
How they overcome them is up to them. But no one's going to go on and say, well, I just set it to easy, and there's no problem for me.
And if you don't want to into them, like the language of the game is the difficulty. It's like it's like Celeste. Mm-hmm. The story of that game is around this difficulty. They gave like some options for more accessibility, but it is still difficult.
Mm-hmm. If a guy, I always think about, there's a guy out there that's playing all this games using only his chin and succeeding, and there is a guy that I follow him.
Indicapable Sean.
That's right. That dude's awesome. But if he can do it, I'm not saying everyone else has to, but anyone can do it. Like he puts in the work, and it shows.
Yeah. We should get into some music, because we got some good talking points.
To Rhythm and Pixels Talk Show.
All right, so Chris, if you don't mind, we'd like to start with you. Would you want to pick your first original track?
Yes, this is from ActRaiser 2, the sequel. I don't know about the adored sequel, but the sequel to the I guess it's like an action sim game that first released on the Super NES. The sequel was a straight up platformer. It completely ditched the sim elements to I know a lot of people weren't crazy about that, which is totally understandable, but the game is incredibly difficult. It is known for being tough as nails, but the soundtrack by Yuzo Koshiro is amazing. Like he did an incredible job for the second game, just as good of a job as he did on the amazing first game soundtrack.
All right, well, let's have a listen.
And this is Industen, I believe is the name of the track.
Yeah, Industen. Here we go. ActRaiser 2. And we're back. You're listening to the track Industen from ActRaiser 2 for the Super Nintendo, composed by Yuzo Koshiro. Chris, this game... Now, I've only ever played ActRaiser 1, and I've only heard stories of ActRaiser 2. The stories of people losing their mind getting through this one.
It's difficult.
Yeah. ActRaiser 1 isn't easy, for sure.
No, it's a tough game, too. 2 is a whole other step up, though, for sure. It's a really, really cool system because it's focused on flight. Like that was the whole theme of the game. And if you watch somebody that really knows what they're doing play that game, it looks awesome. It looks so acrobatic, and watching like the what's it, the master, I think that is what his name is in those games, like fly around and do these like sword dives and these crazy spells like back to back. It's really, really, really cool, but it's very difficult to get down.
Now, I'm trying to remember, does ActRaiser 2 still have the life sim elements, or did they can that for solely nothing but action?
Totally gone. Yeah, it's all platforming stages.
My question is the platforming like the platforming in the first one? Because that was really floaty and weird.
It's floaty for sure. It's definitely, the first game is definitely very, very bumpy.
Yeah, bumpy.
I still like it, but it's bumpy.
From
a little
descriptor for that, I think. It's
bumpy or clunky, yeah.
Here's a question for you.
Not clunky, because like it's responsive, but like you bump around.
I guess bump around. 2 questions for you actually. Did you like the life sim elements in the first game?
Yeah, I love ActRaiser 1. I love the sim.
I liked I did like that part a lot. I like that it broke up the sections between
Okay, second question for both of you now.
I'm in this.
Did either of you Well, I know you're in it, but he picked the track, so have either of you played Smelter yet?
Oh,
Smelter.
Yeah,
SMELTER.
I remember hearing about that one.
Because if you have it and you like ActRaiser, you need to get on it.
There was another one that came out that was I did a whole video on ActRaiser, like on the whole series.
There was another game that came out that was swearing up and down it was ActRaiser. That one wasn't as good. That was called Soul something.
Soul. Yeah. Oh god, I can't remember.
But Smelter, and there's a good reason you can't remember. Your brain is protecting you.
Touche.
But Smelter is fantastic. They did add a patch later for people who hated the life sim part where you can just kind of skip over that.
Oh, really? It looks fascinating.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's really good. Like, to me, the entire game is a gem. But I don't think a lot of people played it, and it makes me sad. But when I'm hearing people talk about ActRaiser specifically, I have to straight up bring up Smelter because you need to play that game, and you will love it. I like the music in it so much I bought the OST just to play it on the show. It's good, man. You would like it. And if you do play it, you guys tell me what you think of it. But you'd have time for it, too, because it's not an incredibly long game either. You know, you should play it.
It's like pixel graphics?
Yeah. It's like Super Nintendo, esque pixel graphics. It's watching a play.
When did it come out?
During COVID, so it was either 2021 or... It was 2021, I think.
I'll check it out. I had not heard about this.
Yes. Consider yourself told. You will enjoy it, I promise. I can't imagine you disliking that game. But if you do, just tell me.
While we're here, we got to talk about this music from Koshiro. This does feel like ActRaiser 1 just kind of bumped up. Bumped up.
But don't.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Very.
It's amazing.
Yeah, cinematic, and it's dynamic too. There's a lot of sections that they quiet down with the strings and then build back up with the.
I feel like it kind of carries that tempo level that just says I'm an angelic hero on the move. That's the vibe I get.
Yeah, and no percussion too, just like the original sound. There's no driving drums. There's no even military drums. It's just like a.
Oh, because he's a one-man army.
He's a one-man army, sure.
I can tell that he kind of has the samples from the SNES sound chip down. He's kind of got that. I think he really has mastered that. That's what you're kind of seeing with this soundtrack, or hearing, I suppose, with this soundtrack.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so we're going to move on to something a bit different. We're going to move on to the arcade.
Odd episode.
An odd episode? This is an odd episode. I was thinking
Chris,
10.
there you go.
This is what we did last week, actually. And actually, I skipped the song last week, too. That was my fault. Pernell, you're next. Man.
Wow. I remember certain things, I swear.
Keep me on track, Pernell. Keep me on track.
So this first track, I think I'm going to be the guy on this episode that kind of talks more about a lot of recent games, because I brought up games that I'm playing fairly recently that are very difficult. But let's start with this one, which has a spectacular OST that I have been in love with. It's from the game ScourgeBringer, and the track title is called Frozen Keep, composed by Joonas Turner. Welcome back. You are listening to Frozen Keep from the game ScourgeBringer, composed by Joonas Turner. Yeah, this track goes hard without repercussion, without concern for the ears of the listener.
Yeah.
It just wants you to know that you're in deep doo-doo and you're going to pay.
Is this indicative of the rest of the soundtrack?
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to say like the levels after the Frozen Keep get a little softer, but I couldn't tell you beyond stage 3 because I never got past area 3 because this game is a monster. But
that means the game's doing its job.
It's absolutely doing its job, and I keep wanting to come back and play it. Like, time is the issue, but I still come back and play it every once in a while. Just like I said, it's like I want to get that feeling again because this is one of those games where it's designed around this fast, frenetic, kinetic motion that makes you feel, I don't know, like almost like you're a parkour master while you play. So it's a roguelite, which is very overly common these days. But the premise behind this is that you're a character who's running through this random labyrinth. I don't even know the story, so don't even ask. But you're running through this labyrinth from room to room. And when you're running between rooms, the music is very quiet and light. But the moment you enter a room where there's enemies, you're locked in, the enemies pop up, and then it gets hard on you. And immediately you are tasked with clearing them out, and the monsters are complete jerks. The way you can fight is you have a gun, but it has very limited bullets. That's not the way you're meant to fight primarily. The way you're meant to actually fight is by using your sword to slash things to death. You can have a dash, and like either double or triple jump, and then a dash. You can smack bullets back at guys, but the overall idea is just kind of jump at a guy, dash, start slashing them, run away, jump off, dash right to the next guy. And you keep a constant chain of like beating the snot out of guys. Wow. If a bullet comes after you, smack the bullet back at the thing, and you're just, it's hard to even explain it. It's just, you're constantly moving from enemy to enemy, smacking bullets, beating the tar out of things. And
like a sports announcer for now.
Oh, thank you. I got a new career in the works.
Let's think back at him. Then he hits it back.
Holds it. But holds it. But like after you win, you might get a reward for the room or wherever. And when you go to a shop to get new gear, you got to pay with your life. You have to spend health that's already hard to keep to upgrade yourself.
Oh man, I love that idea.
The money is your blood.
I love that idea.
Awesome.
It is such a
It's
great
almost
game.
like you got to be confident in yourself to get it moving on.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah,
Like, okay, I can make it one extra room and maybe get some health back into combat. I'll buy this really cool charge attack. And it's like, well, I almost never use my guns anyway because I'm supposed to stab everything because I like dashing into enemies and like get that. And it also makes a satisfying plonk sound. You have like, ping, 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 ping. It's
got to sound really good, like to this style of music too, right?
It's everything.
For now.
This game is the perfect package. As long as you're okay with challenge, I recommend it to dang near anybody. I recommend it to you because it's pretty much that Celeste parkour, except they slap hardcore combat on top of it.
Yeah, it does look like my style.
Yeah.
How'd the sounds go, Pernell?
This sound go pew 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 pew. It's so good.
I think you like this game.
It's really good. Yeah. Like, you should have heard me when I was reviewing it. I was like, this game is a masterpiece. Everyone should own it.
That good. Okay. I'm intrigued.
I mean, to put perspective on for people who don't listen to the other show, I review 2 to 4 games a week. So I can get pretty drowned out and like, this is a fun game. I think people could like it. And then I get to this game, I'm like, it's a masterpiece. It's so good.
What would you compare it to?
Probably Celeste, and beyond that,
Celeste, okay.
I can't think of too much. I can't think of too much else like it.
Yeah, it's a Celeste and Dead Cells. I heard someone call it Dead Cells.
But the thing is, like Dead Cells, I mean, for what little I've played of Dead Cells, you do have to get from point A to point B. It is challenging, but Dead Cells doesn't have that pacing to it. I can't think of too much that hits you like this does, where you're just maybe Gungeon, I don't know. But you have to be constantly on the move.
Yeah, no, Gungeon gives you some breathing room. There's always breathing room.
When you're like ducking behind tables and stuff?
Yeah, and in between rooms, there's like a lot of breathing room.
Well, I mean, you get that here between rooms. I mean, like when the action's high.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of, because there's a lot of cover. You can always find cover. And like that's most of, even like in later stages, like that is Gungeon. You need to find cover and trust. You got to trust the cover.
Trust in the cover.
Because that minute that you don't trust where you're positioned, like just like in any other shooter, especially bullet hell shooters, the minute you don't trust your judgment is when you get hit. Yeah, it's
oh, and I also forgot to mention about this game. One of your attacks can actually dunk enemies too. So like you might like say, I need to get a little bit of breathing room, quote unquote. So you might rump on a guy, slash, like light, heavy, and when you hit with the heavy, they'll send the guy flying in the direction you're facing.
Oh,
so you can kind of like ping pong him into something else.
Oh, I like that. And then his position will be somewhere new.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, I want to try this one.
It's so good.
I'm curious.
Do it. So buy that and smelt it.
Yeah, once I move my TV back, I got a new stereo system too. I'm hooking up to it. I'm really excited. So, I'm going to maybe this one and Smelter. Maybe we'll see. Smelter. We'll see about Smelter for now. Okay, so my first track, as I was saying before, is an old school shooter. This is in the arcade. Arcade games classically, intentionally, incredibly difficult. This is the original R-Type for the arcade, composed by Masato Ishizaki, credited as SCLAP, SCLAP.
Man, this track SCLAPs.
It SCLAPs for sure. This is Stage 6, Scramble Crossroad. You are listening to Scramble Crossroad, Stage 6 from R-Type for the arcade, composed by Masato Ishizaki. And Stage 6 I have never seen in R-Type. I think I got to 3, Stage 3 maybe. So earlier this year, we went. Pernell and I went to Retro World Expo in Connecticut, and they had an original R-Type cabinet there, and I played that. I played that for way longer than I expected to play because it was really like the graphics are really, really good, the sound is really, really good, and it is so freaking hard.
You'll spend so long on stage 1.
It's so good.
It really is
so good.
Memorization. A lot of it is memorization. You move your ship really quickly. You really just have to know what's coming, and then when it does come, like once you know what's coming, you can kind of appreciate the artwork a little bit more and the animation a little bit more. So you really enjoy R-Type?
Oh, I love R-Type. It's definitely more of like a puzzle type shooter than like more of an action based, because a lot of times like there's like things that'll happen in the stage that are very scripted, and you kind of have to like figure out where you need to be and positioned. Obviously, you're still dodging enemy fire and whatnot, but a lot of people will describe it as like a puzzle, like a classic puzzle shmup, because of just how kind of orchestrated the levels work for most of the games. But great music. R-Type is probably one of my favorite shmup series OSTs of all time. Super R-Type in particular is...
Yeah.
This track has one of those sounds that makes you kind of bob your shoulders up and down.
Yeah. I was going through the whole soundtrack, and I was like, what are the songs I haven't heard yet? And I was like, this is pretty
anime.
good.
It feels very anime, like 80s anime.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I also like the sound from the old hardware. It's very like, it's a little crunchy. It's a little crunchy. Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely.
R-Type side-scrolling shooter, and you have like an option, almost like a Gradius option that you can kind of like throw around behind you and in front of you. And
of course.
Yeah, and you use that to your advantage. I guess like a puzzle where you're kind of like you can use it to protect yourself against enemy fire. You can use it to throw at bosses, and then you kind of keep firing while it's at the boss. And so you have to really know ahead of time how you're going to be using the one option that you have. But, yeah.
The force is really cool because it's a risk-reward system. So when you shoot out your force, the detriment is that you're very defenseless because it absorbs enemy fire. So that's what's so ingenious about that entire system is, like, you know, if you want to shoot it out there, it'll kill enemies and like do damage on bosses, but it also leaves you much more vulnerable to like incoming enemy fire, which is a really, really cool concept.
Yeah, I do like that a lot. And these are like concepts and styles of game that you really see forward in time since when the first R-Type came out. I want to say this was 80 something when the first
87.
87.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It looks not that it looks like it came out today, but it looks more like 90s style graphics. It's really,
it makes
really
sense
good
to me because I remember it was one of the original HuCard games on the TurboGrafx 16.
Yeah. R-Type was incredibly
I was abysmal
popular
at it though. So.
It's a hard game.
It's like, well, I'll put that game into the shelf. I'm terrible at this.
R-Type 2 is even tougher, man. You think R-Type 1 is rough. R-Type 2 is just
Where'd you
mean.
think of R-Type Final, by the way? I never got to play that.
I like R-Type Final a lot. It's not the most like treasured series by most of the fan base, but I still think it's great. I think it's a lot of fun.
And then they made an R-Type Final 2 because it can't be truly final.
Yeah, R-Type Final Fantasy 5. So what was the one we played at your house that one time? It was like really big wide screen.
Was it a vertical or horizontal?
Horizontal.
It was a horizontal?
Yeah, it was horizontal.
I thought you were talking about freaking Cavendish Burst or whatever. Right?
No, not Caladrius.
Not Caladrius.
No, it was a super wide screen.
And it was a shmup.
Yeah, on the PlayStation.
Now I'm trying to remember what the heck it was, because I remember Caladrius Burst playing it with you.
Yeah, that was Final. I think it was Final 2 that we played together.
I don't have an R-Type at my house.
Okay, we played something else then.
It's going to come to me, I'm sure, but I don't know what it is.
It was one of those, man. It was really, really wide screen.
I have Gradius 4 and Gradius 3.
Maybe it was a Gradius game.
But I feel like we wouldn't have played that because I had that on PS2.
I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to figure this out. This is a mystery for my own thing.
Your own edification. Yeah. You'll solve it.
Well, I'll figure it out. Well, Chris, we're back to you and your second track.
Second trick? My second track is from one of my favorite games of all time, Bloodborne. Amazing FromSoft game. It's kind of like lumped in with the Souls series, but not technically a Souls game. And the track is Cleric Beast. And I cannot remember the composer, but he's awesome.
To be honest, a part of me even wonders what... Well, I'll talk about that when we come back. I don't want to hold this up. Let's go.
That was Cleric Beast from Bloodborne, composed by Tsukasa Saitoh. And
thanks for the save.
Yeah, I got you, man. And the actually, I think you wrote it first. Yeah, this was chosen by Chris Baines. I just watched the. I never played Bloodborne, so I was watching this boss fight on YouTube, and it is cool and bloody, very bloody.
Bloodborne is a gem of a title.
Bloodborne
Chris already made that very well, made that exclamation, but I just want to second it that I do very much enjoy Bloodborne. And I want to say, I wonder if you agree with me on this, Chris, but one thing I really liked about Bloodborne, aside from just the general atmosphere, was that it's unlike the Souls games in that it drives a harder focus on being offensive and fast as opposed to playing defensively. Like, there's a shield that you can get in the game. It's kind of given to you as a joke even. Like, hey, are you going to use this thing? You should put it down because it ain't going to work.
Wow.
But also you get that cane that turns into a chain whip. And freaking fantastic weaponry.
It's great. Yeah, it's a lot faster than the Souls series, and it definitely has a much bigger emphasis on like staying aggressive. Because as you take damage, you start to lose health. It's kind of like Marvel vs. Capcom in a way, Rob, in a weird, I guess a weird comparison, in that like when you're taking damage, you have two health bars. You have like the one that's like kind of dropping, and then you have one that's kind of like dropping very, very slowly. And if you counter enemies quick enough, you'll actually be able to restore some of your health by like doing damage before that bar drops too far. So it's you're rewarded for staying aggressive with enemies, which is like completely the opposite of the Souls games.
Strike hard, strike fast.
Right. It kind of that kind of makes sense. Like you want to, like if you're being attacked by these incredibly powerful enemies, like you want to make sure they're down. You want to, like, it's encouraging you. It says like we want you to be aggressive, play dangerously. Where in some of those other games where it's like, okay, we know you're going to take your time. Maybe you should be careful.
Because it's funny you make that statement. You say like you want to make sure they're down, but let's be real, they ain't gonna be down for a bit. You're still gonna be chipping. It's just they don't want you to breathe. It's what it is. Like it's one thing if you're like, okay, I'm gonna stay back and kind of get their emotions down, but once you're in, it's very hard to get back out.
Right. Like they'll chase you down.
Yeah, like I remember there was one boss in the game. You might remember who it is, Chris. But you go through like this dilapidated town. You go down some stairs through a graveyard, and you enter this room that's got a bunch of pillars in it. And this jerk is just dropping poison everywhere while you're fighting them. So like while you're fighting up close, they're just making you sick. So you're like, okay, I need to take a chance. I need to step back. I'm getting too poisoned. And if you play with your friends,
Bloodstar Beast. I think it's Bloodstar Beast. I can't remember. I think that's the third boss. I'm trying to remember.
And I feel like that's the funny thing. Again, like if these were like narratively lined characters where you're like, okay, I have a story attached to this guy, it might be easier for us to remember who they are. But the Cleric Beast and Gascon are easy to remember because they were like the big wall characters for many of us. But this guy, I just know him as Dripping Poison Monster. He was a real jerk, but it was fun to finally win. Bloodborne is great. It's one of the games I can't recommend to everybody because of the unavoidable hurdle of difficulty. But if you have the stomach for it and you're okay with getting knocked down to get back up, there's a gem of a game in here that is worth your time. It's so
boss
fun.
design. The boss design is S tier. I think it's better than all of the other FromSoft Souls-ish games, and just so well. The art direction in the game is just amazing too. Just that very Victorian, dark Victorian kind of.
The boss you fight on the lake, the moonlit lake. I don't even remember that boss's name, but that was another visual. It was Rom.
Spider?
Yeah, but the giant spider. You're fighting on a freaking lake. You're walking on the water and the moon's shining down on top of it, and there's this giant freaking spider monster fighting you. And you're like, "Whoa, this is beautiful."
I feel
so
like
cryptic.
That's what a lot of these difficult games do. They create stories. And there's a narrative in this game. You said earlier you don't remember it, or you don't know if there is like.
No, there's a narrative. They do this thing where they kind of like. Most games, like you were talking about before, there's a story and they want to push you through the story. So you walk into a room and the guy's like, "Hi, I'm Jim, the local blacksmith. Can you save our town from that guy with a very long name?" This game is just like, you can walk into a place, there's a bunch of dead bodies. You might see a document on the floor that has a lot of text you might not read.
Yeah.
And you might come across a character that you don't get to see because they're behind a door, but they talk to you like, "Help me find my mommy." And then you're just like, okay, well, I don't know who this kid is, but their mom's lost, so I guess I'll help them. Bosses have names that tie back to narrative that you didn't get unless you were looking at this very specific document.
Well, that's good then. So I mean, to my point still is like with a lot of like extremely difficult games, especially a lot of like older difficult games where maybe there wasn't much of a narrative, or if there was, you really had to look for it, or it was in the manual somewhere that no one had anymore because you rented it from the Blockbuster.
Like the NES.
Yeah, so like you're creating your own story. Like you guys are like talking about the battles and like where you were when you fought and like who you fought them with. Like that wasn't scripted by a lot of that couldn't be scripted by the game developers. Like that was you creating your own story out of the game.
And I can appreciate that. Makes a lot of sense.
That. Yeah.
Because there are a lot of parts in those games where that's exactly it. Like I can sit here and tell you the story about my first time adventuring to the woods where the freaking crazy people carrying the pitchforks and torches were chasing after. Looking for you, basically.
Yeah. We're not telling the story of Bloodborne, Mr. Guy Bloodborne. We're telling the story of Pernell and Chris playing Bloodborne.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that there's like, sorry to interrupt you, Pernell.
Go ahead.
There's also something to be said. Exactly what you're saying, Rob. Is I think that like with a lot of games, like like The Last of Us and Uncharted, and like a lot of like the very cinematic games, like the narrative is absolutely front and center. But when you go back and talk to people, that played like, Ghosts and Goblins or Bionic Commando or these like really, really just tough as nails games, the story is like what you're saying. It's like they remember, like, oh, it's not about like what is happening in the game. It's like when they beat this like boss. Oh, I remember I was at the arcade. I had a crowd of people, and I beat. It wasn't about the game itself. It was about the experience they had
With
overcoming this obstacle that was like very, very difficult.
Yes. And I feel like that way, even within 2, I think it's funny because a lot of people talked about how the game didn't really click with them like they wanted it to, and like they liked the first one better. But I played it on like hard difficulty, and when I was playing on hard, I was kind of doing this whole thing where I was like, I wouldn't let anything live; everything had to die. But in a game where resources were very limited, that meant I had to do a lot of stealth killing, which meant I want to say I took 37 hours to beat the game that most people probably beat in 20. Because I was like watching enemy patterns, trying to learn their routines, stealth stabbing jerks. Yeah, I had the whole layout of the freaking world in my mind by the time I knew everything.
You were playing as Purnell, playing the game. Yeah,
absolutely,
exactly. Yeah,
set traps for guys, everything. I was getting into it.
Let's play as Purnell playing the podcast. What's your next track? Yeah,
here's another game that drives me crazy, and I will never complete it because it taxes your brain in a way that few games do. This game is called Circa Infinity. The track is titled Ringed and is composed by Jack and Jim Fay. Welcome back. You were listening to Ringed for the game Circa Infinity, composed by Jack and Jim Fay. So, I feel like this game absolutely belongs on a Tough as Nails episode because it wants you to suffer while listening to great music in the process. How to describe Circa Infinity? Well, as a puzzler, not so much a platformer because you're not really jumping on platforms, but think of a bullseye, outer rim circles with different layers going deeper inward. You start on the complete outer rim of the bullseye, and your goal is to run around the outside so you can find a specific wedge that will allow you to jump into the circle. And once you jump into that wedge, you now have to run on the inside of that circle on the outer rim.
It zooms into another circle.
Yes, right. And you have to now jump to the next layer of the bullseye to run on the outside of that, to jump into it, to jump on the next outer layer. You're going from ring to ring to ring. First on the outside of the ring to the inside of the ring to the next ring.
Enemies on each part of the ring that you have to jump over or run under. And it is fast and hypnotic. Like, it's usually like 2 or 3 colors, and it is just flashing over and over and over again at your eyes.
Yes.
Wow.
Let me just say, don't just take Pernell's description. Go watch a video of this game being played, because the entire time this song has been playing, like, Rob and I both pulled up videos of this, and we can't look away. It like he said, it's hypnotic. It's unlike anything I've ever seen in a video game before. It looks incredible. Like, it's just like you get lost in it. It's just so cool. I want to play this so bad now.
It's another case of, I use this word a lot this episode, but it's a friggin' masterpiece in puzzling. And you get boss modes. Eventually you get to a boss at the end of each set of levels, and the boss has his own way you have to completely battle them, because you can't fight back. You have to make them hurt themselves until they die. But it's there's like a weird emotion to it, because you're not really killing the bosses. It's almost like they're a part of the main character's psyche or something. Like, they'll cry, they'll laugh, they do all kinds of stuff.
Oh, interesting.
And you keep going.
A game where there's not doesn't seem like there's a lot of dialogue, and there's
but there's still a story,
and there's not a lot of narrative told through cutscenes or anything like that. It's all through this gameplay.
And platform is it on?
And so I played on the Switch, but it's also on Steam. I'm pretty sure it's on Xbox and probably PlayStation as well. But it's funny too, because as much as I struggled getting through levels where you play as one character, it was difficult, but I was able to eventually manage. And I got through 2 or 3 worlds. And then I got to a world where you have to control 2 people at the exact same time, which broke me. I was like, well, I could do this, but I was going through levels where I was completing without dying once. That was my goal, get through the entire stage without dying once. And you get a little award for doing that too. But once it became 2 people, it's possible, but I was like, I gotta level up a little bit, so I gotta step away for a minute. But it's so good.
Controlling 2 characters. Oh my gosh. Controlling 2 characters on opposite sides of the circle, on different levels sometimes. That's a lot for the brain to manage.
It's a true challenge, and when you surmount it, it's not like a lot of games like, okay, here's another shooter I won at. This is great, but I'm done. Where's the next shooter? This is, my brain has leveled up.
It reminds me a bit of, I've watched a playthrough of someone playing Ikaruga, both planes at the same time.
Holy Christ!
I've seen that.
Yeah,
I think you shared that. I think I watched that video that you shared, and that blew my mind.
I'm like, I can barely get through the first stage of that darn game, and there's this someone's like, I just memorized the whole thing. But still, they just memorize it. But just being able to play both at the same time, it's kind of like that.
Even with the memory, though, it's like being able to make sure that your hands don't cross. As dumb as this is going to sound, make sure your hands don't get cross signals.
Yes.
When the right hand ship is on the left side of the screen.
Yes.
And your left. That's what pop used to do to kill me. Like, when I was getting good at pop music, which is all the notes falling down, hitting them to the beat, it was one thing to say, okay, left notes left hand, right hand notes right hand. But once they start getting to the point where you have to start bringing your left hand to the right, your right hand to the left, and you're doing these weird piano crossovers, suddenly your brain starts to shatter because you're like, I can't make my right hand do left things while the left hand is doing the right things.
Yeah, you're playing the piano, right? It's forcing you to play rhythm with one hand and melody with another hand, and it's maddening. But you keep wanting to do it one more time. This time will be different. This time will be different. And also, this game is good for that because when you die, it kicks you back one layer and it immediately gets you going. There's no try again. It's just, nope, you're in it. You're in it until you stop. That's another thing we can talk about. and maybe talk a little bit more in the next track, is losing in games. There's usually a punishment or some kind of like letting you know that you lost, so you should try again in these games.
Oh, I have a whole dialogue for that.
And how do these games punish you, and how has that evolved over the years? And I feel like that's a really good way, because it kind of keeps you. It's like it punishes you by pushing you back, but it's also kind of like, it's not a reward, but it's saying you can kind of keep learning, you know, and it wants you to keep learning and keep getting better. And I feel like that's how it should be.
Yeah. I was going to ask Pernell if, like, I was like, are you a 1cc guy? And what I mean by that is,
I know 1cc, baby. I know 1cc.
Well, and yeah, you like, do you impose restrictions on yourself? You know, you don't actually beat a game until like you've overcome this certain restriction you've imposed. And like usually, like a lot of people with shmups will be like, they haven't actually finished it until they have a 1 credit clear.
How about this? Rob really wants to move on to the next track. I will 100% answer that question. I will answer that question, and we will also talk about the thing that Rob was talking about. I'm ready. I got words.
All right. So the next game is 1001 Spikes. I picked this game for Pernell. The music is by Rush Jet 1.
By the way, this is. Okay, go ahead.
This is the Nannar Stage 5.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna know the track when I hear it. Trust me.
Yeah, but Rush Jet 1, a stalwart in the 8-bit, or not 8-bit, but
retro
OST
game
community, and chiptune. Could not think of the word chiptune now.
Potato chiptune.
Gosh, I do a podcast. Anyway, this is Nannar Stage 5, 1001 Spikes. I played this a couple times. Pernell's played this about 1 billion times, 1001 times maybe.
Oh yeah.
Here we go. We're listening to music from 1001 Spikes. This is Tower of Nannar by Rush Jet 1. Thank you, Pernell, for that.
So the thing about it is, like, because Rob was like, this is stage 5. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Stage
5 of the Tower of Nannar. And I only know that because stage 5 of the main game, I am extremely intimate with, because I went to a party a few years ago up in Pennsylvania. It was a housewarming party for a friend, Joe from SML. And while we were all hanging out, Joe was showing off whatever video games he gets for Xbox. And I was like, oh, you got 1001 Spikes. Let me mess around with that for a little bit. So I booted it up. I was just playing it while everybody's having a party or whatever. And through playing this game, I became so obsessed with it that I stopped caring about the party. I didn't even care I was there. So I just kept going. And I was dying, and succeeding. And eventually, everyone at the party stopped what they were doing and watched me suffer as I pushed through the game. And eventually I got to stage 5, and it helped me up quite a bit, because the levels in stage 5, you can look them up when you got a breather if you want. They get hard, but yes. I completed them. I completed the entire main game, and then I realized they added a suck in the lock. I was like, oh, screw this. I ain't playing this right now.
So 1001 Spikes, platforming, kind of like an 8-bitty type style.
One-hit kill.
One-hit kill. There are spikes hidden everywhere. So, like, you walk across these floor tiles and like very, very subtly are different in a way that, like, the spikes will come up. And then, like, even the wall tiles are very, very subtly different in which they'll shoot spikes at you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a puzzle platformer in a way, and that you're kind of like learning how to traverse these stages.
Yes, every level the goal is to explore and find the key to unlock the exit door and then reach the exit door. There's also golden skulls hidden on levels, which are like for unlockables or whatever.
Right.
But for the most part, find the key, find the exit, and you're trying to do it in as short a time as possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes in a span of like 20 seconds.
And you have like 1,001 lives to do it.
You get a lot. I'm having trouble remembering if it was 100% 1,000 lives, but I know it's a stupid amount of lives. And I remember booting the game up and going, I'll never run out of lives. And then eventually I was like, oh crap, I better get some extra lives.
That's how the pretty games start too. You have like what, like 100 or I don't remember how many lives. I think you have 1,000 lives, but you're just like, oh, I'll be totally fine. And then like you finish the first stage and you have like
700 left. Like what the heck?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this is interesting. I want to get back to our previous discussion topic, but this is interesting because we played games where after you die, it tells you how many times you've died.
Oh yeah,
and you've gotten so mad at that. It's like you don't want to know because you want to keep that number low. Mm-hmm. And once you get past double digits, you're like,
Okay, so I'm going to answer your first question,
failed.
and then I'll answer Chris's because what you just said ties into the thing you mentioned about what makes a difficult game something you want to press on with, like as far as like them punishing you for failure.
Yeah.
Like what are the methods? So my philosophy is a few things. One, make it so that when you fail, you can get back to the challenge. Not necessarily instantly, though I'm not going to complain about that, but make it so that you don't have to waste hours of your life trying again. And a lot of games in the present day have been becoming really good at doing that. Just saying, like, some games have gotten rid of lives entirely because their goal is to say, if it takes you 100 tries, 1,000 tries, we don't want you to feel like you're running out of time.
Now, that's one of the things I loved as a kid about Ninja Gaiden on the NES was like you had lives, but you had unlimited continues. It'll take you back to the beginning of the stage, but you never got a game over that you were like completely done.
But therein lies the slight rub. I agree with you, except every Ninja Gaiden game had this stupid gimmick where at the last level, but that's why a lot of people never finish it because they get used to the one thing. It's like, nope, take it away from me.
But up to that point, it's what sucks you back in. It's like I can just keep going. I'm not worried about that structure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that sometimes unlimited lives. I genuinely loathe when games make sure to rub in your face how many times you died. I get that there's an element to that just says, look how hard you worked. The game beat you this many times, but you got back up. What that says to me is, I died 1,000 times. I don't want to see that. Just know I eventually succeeded. Leave me alone. Let me suffer in silence.
That. I love seeing because it shows you how much you persevered, though.
Yes. Yeah, it's a badge of courage.
And that's true. Yeah. I agree with you guys, except my brain tells me someone did it in less deaths than
this
you
is, This
did.
is something that you brought up earlier, Chris, which was like it's kind of self-imposed rules. Like you asked if we were a 1cc player.
And I do have those, too.
And I feel like that's something that Purnell kind of lives with. I'm very similar. As specific bullet hell shmup games, I do play, like if I get to a continue screen, I don't continue. I go back from the beginning. Because I'm playing for that score, you know? And if Purnell were to see how many times he's died, he's like, no. That means that I need to play perfectly.
I need to be better than this. I can't be dying this much.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, too, because I feel like I have an unexpected self-imposed thing, too. Like, for one, I will never play on easy mode. I have to play on at least the middle difficulty. And people will get on my case and say, well, yeah, but then you're not experiencing the game. I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, I want to feel the sense of challenge that says I had to work in some fashion to accomplish the goal. And I get why easy exists, and I'm cool with people picking it for themselves.
There's a feeling, and there's a big dopamine hit of learning a new skill.
Yes.
Yeah, and a good game, I feel like you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do feel that.
That's a big one. And then the second thing, and this is the only one I can think of beyond this, is I have an odd penchant for not using skill points in games until the game kind of makes me do it. There's no badge of honor for it. There's no trophy or achievement. It's just me being like, well, I don't need to use skill points yet, so why spend them?
It's like you're playing an RPG and you're leveling up, and you're like, I don't need that.
Yeah,
I don't need that until you tell me to.
And that's what kicks my butt in like a Dark Souls game, because Dark Souls doesn't let you hoard anything. It's like either you use them or we're going to take them from you, and you're out of luck, which means you wasted time.
I think that's a great design choice.
Oh, it is, because I spend my skill points.
Force yourself on a path and learn the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, and another thing is, like lives and continues and everything, all of that stems from the arcade mentality of like,
Yeah.
That's how you like got people to spend quarters. But the thing that kind of sucked, I mean, like I think it kind of sucked, is that kind of moved into console games, and you know, I guess for better or worse, but it's one of those things that I kind of wish had stayed in arcades, personally. But I get why people like them in there, but I definitely like games that like kind of just let you go at your own pace and not have to worry about lives and continues.
Well, a lot of older
Yeah,
games,
yeah.
I would think the reason they did it was because the games themselves, if you could continue infinitely and keep going, were ultimately fairly short, which reduced the life of the game in a console for a player. So, like, think of, say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a game, but like, just think of like a classic NES game that you might have liked that may have like 5 stages in it.
Like Ghosts and Goblins.
Yeah, Ghosts and Goblins.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Ghosts and Goblins was just hard, period. But let's say Ghosts and Goblins wasn't particularly challenging as it is. Let's say it was like moderately challenging as opposed to like pull your teeth out hard. If you had infinite continues and/or infinite lives, you could brute force the game most likely, and it probably would take you no more than like an hour at the most to get through it. 2
Sure.
hours early on if you're still learning the ropes. Keep in mind,
I
we're
guess-
referring to infinite credits and stuff.
Also, keep in mind, you've probably rented this game, and you want to hold it on for another day.
Oh yeah.
Or
Yeah.
But like, you want them to, they want you to basically come back and re-rent it, or eventually just buy it.
also the games that were popular at the time, like say like in the arcades, were platformers, and like if you were really really good at them, then you could probably, if there was like no time limit, like how are they going to impose restrictions around gameplay so that you would be encouraged to spend more money to complete the game?
Nintendo pulled it off, and we
Yeah.
hate them for it with their stupid Play Choice 10 machines.
Yeah, they put like that is like the literal sense of here is a timer on the game and it shuts off when you're done.
So you're not rewarded. You're not rewarded for your skill.
No,
You're not rewarded for your skill. You're just paying.
You're rewarded for your wallet.
You're renting it. You're renting time on an NES machine in an arcade.
But one thing we used to do for fun was we would play, like Mike and I would play Ninja Gaiden 1. I think we did with you before, too,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
1984. We put a quarter in, and the gimmick was to see how far you could get on Ninja Gaiden 1 on 25 or 50 cents before the timer kicked you out.
Yeah. And then eventually it was like speed running like the first 2 stages.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Because you can't make any mistakes. You have to do it as quickly as you can in order to get to stage 3 before you run out of 50 cents.
All right, we are not speed running this podcast. We are turning down this song, and we're getting into the bonus round.
Oh, snap. Bonus round? That was bonus round.
Yeah, bonus, baby.
The bonus rounds where we
Bonus.
play covers and arrangements and remixes on our theme. Chris, I think I cut you off. Did you have something you wanted to say, or
I was just going to clarify that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
that's fine?
That when I was talking about like not liking lives and continues, I don't like them in like overly complicated, like or very overly difficult games. Like I think that I like when like something like Ghosts and Goblins. Like I hate having continues in Ghosts and Goblins. I like, being able to learn the game at my pace because it's hard enough that it will push me back. Something like Mega Man, though, yeah, for sure. Like something that's like a little bit more moderately difficult. Like I'm all about like lives and everything, continues and everything makes sense. But like the really difficult stuff, that's more like what I don't really like, the live and continue restrictions.
Yeah, I feel I got into bullet hell and shooters like in the arcades. But probably because I worked at an arcade and the money wasn't an issue at the point because I could just, sit there after hours. But like now, I don't think I would be into them as much as I am now because of emulation. And I'm able to do save states at the beginning of every stage or at the beginning of every boss. And I can learn the game that way.
Yeah, because to me, that's what makes it. I think it's probably what Chris was just saying, but that's what made that annoying to me was when I had to work to get to a point.
Yeah.
And then I ran out of continues. In order to get back to that point to try to learn that space, it required hours of my time just to get. Like Blaster Master is notorious for that. Blaster Master.
Yeah.
If you go and watch Purnell and Matt Play Games Blaster Master episode, you will see the point where Matt just shuts down because we're running out of time. And then it's like, okay, we got to beat this level, but they keep killing us, and we have to do the whole level to get back. He's like, nope, save states. We're running out of time. I want to go to bed. So it's like you see it happen in real time. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that level of punishment disincentivizes you to try to learn the challenge because you don't want to waste your time doing the parts that you know off like the back of your hand.
These play testers, these QA play testers were masochists. and just assumed that 7, 8-year-old kids were also just as masochistic.
I just kind of assumed that back then they probably gave him like switches in the back of the game to say we can just jump you to a level.
Yeah. So not even realizing it, like that they were already overcoming that that issue that everyone ran up against.
Yeah. And then you have something like Gradius, which like punishes you in a different way by like your power-ups. It pulls your power-ups out, and that's like you can give them infinite lives and infinite continues.
You mentioned the 1cc. Gradius is 1cc. I kid you not. When I play any Gradius game,
it has to be.
The moment I die beyond stage 2, it's over. I just stop. Because I can't get my power up back up to where I was again.
Exactly.
I was playing around with a game idea, and it was a kind of an overhead style, Enter the Gungeon style shooter game. But I wanted the power up system to be like Gradius, and I quickly realized that was going to be a pain in the butt.
Yes,
but there's probably some other ways around that. So I might
balancing that. It's tough.
I might go back to that idea. All right, so Chris, why don't you start with your first bonus round track for us?
This is actually, speaking of Ghosts and Goblins recently, this is from Makaimura, which is the Japanese version of Ghosts and Goblins. And this is stage 1 and 2, and it is a remix done for the 30th anniversary Capcom album that came out, I believe, 8 or 9 years ago? Something like that. But amazing remix.
Sounds on a rude boy team.
Okay, that was the ground background music stage 1 and 2 from Ghouls and Ghosts, remixed by IOSYS.
AKA the only stage track most Ghosts and Goblins players I've ever heard.
It's really this was a lot. It was first like the original melodies and sounds were still really prominent, yet it was so frantic and frenetic. It gives you that the idea of the feeling of playing the game still. This is a really good one.
Oh, it's amazing. One of the greatest video game remixes of all time. I would say it's in my top 10 easily of all time arrangements. So
hey, I'm not going to dispute it. It's a gem.
I just love it. It just keeps like, it's so interesting. There's like the little flamenco guitar intro and outro, and then there's like the little piano orchestral part, and then there's like a guitar solo in the middle, and there's like the cutaway to like the original Famicom track, and then they build on that. It's just such an amazing remix.
Yeah, because it was IOSYS, I was like, okay, I know what's going to come up, but the fact that it started with the guitars, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
what's this going to be? Yeah.
And then when the kid's like, oh, there they are.
There it is.
There they are.
All right, Pranav, what do you have for us today?
All right, so I ended up picking a track that ties into a recent quote-unquote game challenge that's taking place right this moment between myself and the wise guy, Chris Wisner. This comes from the game Landstalker, The Treasure of King Nole, and this is a saxophone cover of the track Bustling Street, covered by Amigoigo Sax.
Bass all the time. Here we go.
Back. Here we go. You listen to Bustling Street, cover from the game Landstalker, The Treasure of King. No, none of that made any rhythmic sense, but I don't care. It was a cover by Amigoigo Sax. I love Landstalker. It is one of my all-time favorite games in existence, and it has earned itself a reputation for being a brutally difficult puzzle platformer adventure game. And it's interesting because I played through it when I was a teenager on the Sega Channel and loved it very much. Was amazed that I was able to complete it. It was a satisfying clear. But recently, on a few episodes ago, no, it wasn't episodes. It was like Chris, the wise guy, had brought up potentially revisiting Landstalker. I don't even remember why. Maybe because I brought it up on the show. And I pushed him. I was like, you know what? No, you're doing it. Do it. And now he's actually playing through it again. And due to the fact that he started playing it again, I also started playing it again. And I've become obsessed with it to the point where I've actually kind of kicked other projects aside. Sorry, reviews. But how dare I? But I've been having such a good time with it. And it also is interesting because I'm not having as much trouble as I remember having with the game. Like, I deep down believe that the last dungeon, which I also believe is probably like the last quarter of the game, because it's a large dungeon, I feel like that's where the majority of the difficulty comes into play. And that's when I'm going to go, this is where it frustrated me. But I've been doing pretty good. I've been tackling it. Yes, I have used some save states here and there, but they're more of a time-saving mechanism at this point than not.
My God. Cheater. Hey, gamer.
People can say whatever they want, but at the end of the day, I beat the game back when there wasn't save states, so I don't care.
When I think of the word fake
I don't know if I believe
gamer,
you.
And I look it up
You
in the
don't have
dictionary.
to.
There's a picture of Purnell next to the word fake gamer.
That's right, just beating his chest. Unga bunga, unga bunga.
I can't believe you, man.
But like, yeah, I'm not even ashamed of it. I did my time. Because this is one of those games where like what they'll do is that they'll have you jump across a bunch of like platforms, right? And they're all hovering. You got to deal with that diagonal control. And if you miss the jump, they drop you into a pit with spikes and monsters. You have to run all the way back through the pit of spikes and monsters, climb a ladder, and do it all over again.
Isometric style gaming with platforming is
it's
a lot.
Brutal.
It's tough. Yeah, it's a lot.
And
Check it to what other game?
Therein lies the rub. Maybe Alundra for folks who played that, because Alundra was made by the guys who made this. But Alundra would be a direct comparison. Aside from that, I am kind of challenged because I kind of feel like Alundra and this are fairly unique in that sphere. Like someone might say Zelda, but Zelda didn't have platforming. Zelda was very much walk and do things. So that alone makes these games different enough that I don't think they get a direct comparison like that.
Platforming in the Game Boy one with the feather.
Yeah, but I wasn't
generally not though. Yes,
it was like it was an item you had to
maybe
use.
That's why these are so unique, because people didn't want to do platforming in the isometric style.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
but I'm perfectly cool with like when the game works. Like when you got this this Takenouchi OST, and you have the graphical style they used, and you have that sense of discovery when you find a treasure chest and go, you got one icky. It just feels rewarding, and it makes you want to press a new sword. I'm going to use that sword. A chrome bust. I'm going to use that. You feel great when you discover things, you unlock that next door, you find that next puzzle solution. It feels freaking good. And that makes you want to discover the next puzzle and move onward.
Yeah, Takenouchi on the Sega Genesis is a fantastic composer.
Yes, he was.
All right, so my bonus round track is going off in another direction. We've had all styles of music this episode. This is an original track, but it was licensed for Jet Set Radio. Jet Set Radio for me, still one of very, very difficult game in places.
Zombie?
Depends.
Dracula?
Well, what did you play? Depends. Which version of it did you play? That makes a huge difference.
This is Jurassic 5. Yeah, that's true. But no. I'll put it right now. I was thinking about difficult games. I immediately thought of Grind Square.
Okay, so the U.S. version. Yeah, Grind Square was rough with the helicopters and hearing Dracula and that one track by Cool.
Yeah.
Just got wicked.
So, but I didn't play. I don't want to play any of those tracks. I want to play About the City by the Reps.
I want my taxi to run by the town. I can hear them all say, listen to the music, listen to the music, listen to the music, listen to the music, sometimes it looks so mad.
right, that was About the Town. Or About the City? About the Town? About the City from Jet Set Radio by the Reps.
Which one is it?
Not bad. I
You know,
don't think
it's there.
they're bad.
But you reminded me, so Grind Square was in Jet Set Radio was
only the U.S.
only
game.
the U.S. version.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that makes sense then. All right. So
Or was it Western versions?
The West. Well, maybe let's go with Western because maybe Europe got it or something
Yeah, I was
too.
going to say, I think Europe may have got that
well, we're in
too.
America, and the world revolves around us.
No, it doesn't.
So that's for us. But man, it was like once that game is really meant to be like not vertical. It's meant to be like in a horizontal, an X and Y axis. You're supposed to explore these cities, maybe going up and down hills. But then once it goes up the Z axis and you're going vertical in this game, it is incredibly challenging.
And that's when they start introducing the helicopters that fire missiles at you while you're grinding across the lines.
Yes,
PTSD.
Once you get it, it's amazing and it looks really cool and it's a great set piece to the game. But holy moly,
The funny part,
rough.
though, like you're mentioning, was Grind Square. For me, the two things that gave me the most grief, though Grind Square was tough. In the burn version of the game, the perfect grind poison jam on their challenge course, that was brutal.
We've definitely
Oh, that was mean.
And then the non-burned version of the game was when you start dealing with the chief and he's firing tear gas at you. When you revisit the level with the park and the sewer line. Oh my God, tear gas gave me so much grief in that game. And of course, then Just That Future is like, combat made people frustrated, so let's take it away. And I was like, no, put it back.
Yeah, I thought the whole game was interesting. The controls were challenging in a very new way. I was watching some gameplay of the original Dreamcast version, and the graphics are still so cool.
They hold up.
They're so cool because like they're just colorful, they're bright, and they weren't trying to overcome any like realism obstacles.
And I gotta
It was
say,
so much
Shitty,
fun.
man.
Yeah.
is it just me or was the tension in that game, like for a game being about tagging walls,
Yeah.
there was a lot of tension in a scenario where you're throwing a long tag and the game would kind of pan the camera when dogs were running at you. It's like, okay, hurry up, finish the tag, the dogs are coming.
Yeah. The cops are coming at you, and you're like, I gotta go.
Gotta go. Can I finish the tag or I gotta drop it and run?
Yeah.
Because if you do the whole tag, you get more points for
Yeah,
it.
it really created like a lot of good moments, a lot of fun tension. It's just a classic game that everyone remembers for a good reason.
It's the fact, it's things like that makes me wonder why it hasn't been revisited. Like, this is one of those games that, again, nothing's come out like it. The closest thing we've got is like freaking Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which has been in development limbo for years at this point.
Yeah.
Like, no one's done this. And where is it? Something like it needs to come back. So if Cyberpunk ever does happen, I'm going to be day wanting that unless it just comes up to like terrible controls or something. But who knows?
Did you play the sequel? Did either of you guys play Future?
Oh, Future. Oh, I bought an Xbox specifically because of Future. I went to visit a
played
friend
it.
in Virginia. She had it. I helped her beat freaking the Love Shockers challenge level because she was stuck there. And I was like, let me play this game. Oh, this is so great. Let me help you out. Let me beat this level for you. And then I went home and immediately bought an Xbox and that game and Gun Valkyrie.
Yeah, after the Dreamcast and PS2, I skipped a bunch of generations of video games, so I never got around to playing this one.
And this one,
I think Future's good. I don't think it's as good as the original. I think there's something missing from it. I still think it's a great game. Like, I'm not taking anything away from it.
I feel like the tension is what was missing primarily.
Yeah, there was just, I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on it when I was playing it the whole time, but I guess it's less based on tagging and more of just like the actual skating.
It's more the skating, because remember in the original game, it was the combination of having to input the tags and evade the law that added that extra bit of oomph. Whereas Future was like, we're going to put tag spots in crazy places and you have to get there. But there's nothing to stop you from doing that. Because all the combat was restricted to arenas. So you get into an arena, you just got to beat guys and then move on.
That's right. So in Jet Set Radio, like all of the grinding and jumping and traversing of the stage was given to you not just to get to those hard to reach places, but it was given to you to evade the cops and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And taking
just slower paced too.
Yeah,
slower paced game.
And so when you take all that away, what you get from Jet Set Future is essentially a collectathon. But the collecting is tag spots.
Yeah, that's such a shame.
Yeah,
it's still fun. It's still fun.
Yeah.
The music is stellar. It's just not the original Jet Set.
Oh man, I'm looking at I have my Dreamcast sitting there on my speakers, I'm just staring at it. I'm remembering there was you can create your own tag in the game, and it was really in depth. Like you put letters in and shift them and move them around.
I feel like in the modern age that would be even better because the problem with making tags in those Jet Set games was that they were still just your game worlds. But in the modern game era,
you can share
could have an
it,
online Jet Set with challenges or whatever, and put the cops back in. Everyone's dodging the cops and trying to get the most tags out there.
Okay,
that would be freaking fun.
A battle royale Jet Set game wouldn't be the worst thing.
It would be the best
That'd
thing.
be kind of fun
because the battle would literally be out tagging your opponents while there's opposition on the screen. And the better one tagger does, the more the law starts to chase them.
Yeah,
because they become notorious.
Oh, that'd be fun.
There are game ideas for this that Sega's dropping. And freaking Sega, man. I don't know.
Well, anyway, for more information on our bonus round, go to rhythmandpixels.com.
To hear Purnell rant about Sega.
Yeah. We'll have
also, there is a rumor that it is being remade. There's been a rumor earlier this year that it and Crazy Taxi are both receiving reboots.
Oh, I want that to happen.
Sega wants that crazy money.
Crazy money.
Crazy money.
Coming soon to theaters, we've got Old Man Rob.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I realized how weird that sounded when I said it. I want to look older.
Very strange.
I just don't want to look like a baby. You know, that's.
Well, you're not like a baby.
You don't look like a baby, Rob.
There's no way you can look like a baby at this point. You could be in your 20s. You'd have a 20s look. It would be great.
Okay, all right. Let's not talk about me
anymore.
I don't even know what to say about this.
They're coming.
Everyone, thanks for listening to episode 35-1 of Rhythm and Pixels. This is the difficult games challenge with Chris Baines.
Tough as nails.
Not a difficult podcast though. Not a difficult podcast at all.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, enjoyable.
I'm going to lose sleep, and it was worth it.
Thank you, Chris, for coming on the show and sharing this sharing your game culture with us. It's great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're always welcome. You know that, man.
Definitely.
But out of curiosity, before we go to the final wrap-up,
absolutely,
can you think of any, either of you for that matter, can you think of any particularly challenging games, past, present, or future? Well, maybe not so much future, that you haven't gotten around to, that you want to, or that you've tried and was like, screw this, I quit, but it was still a fun attempt?
Right. I want to play... And I feel horrible admitting that I haven't played this game as such a giant shmup fan. I want to go back and play R-Type Delta. I've never played it. It has been on my list forever. I've never owned it. And so many people have told me it's amazing. So that is one game I would like to go back and actually play and finish.
Nice.
I keep going back to The Witness. You know, I can't. There's no music in that game to play for the show. But
that game.
It's just...
You can play your cries of agony over record.
So hard. That, and then also, you know, once I do eventually get a Switch, which will eventually happen whenever the next Switch version, next Nintendo console comes out, and Switch gets like really cheap.
You'll get the classic.
That's when I'll get the Switch. So Baba Is You is the next one.
Baba Is You,
yeah.
Because these are those are two really challenging games. Like I always keep going back to The Witness. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll figure it out again, and I solve a few puzzles, and I feel really smart. And then I get stuck.
It makes me wonder if someone's come up with a parody game called The Witless.
The Witless. Yeah, it's. I feel like in times my brain is expanding, and then other times that I'm just like a little baby child. You can't play video games anymore.
Just let your beard grow out. You'll be good.
No one wants to. No, that's not gonna happen. Not gonna do it.
Never gonna grow my beard again.
Oh, before we head out, Chris, can you let our listeners know how they can find you and what you're doing on the internet so they can enjoy it?
You can find me on YouTube as Chris, the letter B, Crisps, Crisps. That is what the name people used to call me to make fun of me back in elementary school.
Oh, I was
you own that.
I kind of wonder where that came from.
yeah. They called me Crispy Crisps back in in first or second grade on the playground. They would like make fun of my name, but I embraced it.
Doesn't it make you wonder back then they give you that kind of thing? You're like, oh, this hurts. I hate this. And then you're like, later on, you're like, why was I upset with that?
I kind of dig it. Yeah, it's one of those like I'm embracing it. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube. You can just search, type in youtube.com/crispycrisps or do a search for it. I don't know when this is coming out. I don't know when this episode is releasing.
The 15th.
But on the 15th. Okay, so this will already be out.
16th.
Still, it'll still be out. On the 11th, this Friday, or I guess last Friday for those listening, the history of Star Fox, the first part, it is actually a 2-part series. It's going to be about 2 hours long total, but the first episode will be out this Friday on my channel. And if you're curious to learn about the history of the entire series, it covers from the 1982 through formation of Argonaut Software all the way up through Star Fox 64. Wow. And then the next video will be adventures through Zero, and then a lot of like the fan games and stuff like that.
What happened to Star Fox?
Pretty much. It's actually very fascinating. Like the games might not be like amazing, but the stories behind like how they were created and how they came to be, honestly, are almost more fascinating than like the older ones.
Absolutely. Because it always makes you wonder, like something that seems like a proven formula, just this dramatic shift. You do want to know why, and your show would absolutely go all in on like, why did they make this dramatic shift from what was a successful formula?
Yeah. Just that stuff really fascinates me, which is why I really enjoy your videos. They're really great.
But look out for that. That'll be out on the 11th. The first part at least, and then the second part should be out by like late December, early January, hopefully. But
can we get it for Christmas?
Wrap it
up. I want to finish it before Christmas so I can relax.
I want it for the holiday.
That'll be your Christmas present for yourself.
I want to clock out of work and then load up the video. That's what I want.
Exactly. But that's where you can find me. And I'm also on Twitter at Crispy Crisps. If Twitter's still standing by the time you hear this.
Who knows?
Just don't change the name of your account and you'll be safe.
It'll be there, but it'll be completely different.
There will be no check mark by my name. Sorry to say.
Yeah, none of us have those. I don't think any of us care too much about the check marks.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Anyone can be Purnell, then what?
Yeah.
You have to like typical games too, I guess. Sucker!
Yeah, I guess there's plenty of Purnells out there. So, anyway, if you want to get in contact with us, if you have a track suggestion or a topic suggestion or any kind of suggestion, or if you just want to say hello, the best way to get in contact with the podcast is through our email,
rhythmandpixels@hotmail.com.
And for a full track listing of this episode and access to all of our episodes, please go to our website,
rhythmandpixels.com.
We have a Discord server. There's a link at the top of that website. And we also have a 24/7 8-bit and 16-bit radio station that used to be on YouTube, but right now is on Twitch, twitch.tv/rhythmandpixels. So if you want to just listen to some tunes and every once in a while, Purnell says, you're listening to Rhythm and Pixels.
I do.
Sounds like that.
Every time.
You can check it out there, twitch.tv/rhythmandpixels. We also upload the show on YouTube. And if you want to support the show, you can go to the website. There's like some cool merch there. We have like some fun t-shirts related to the podcast, fun t-shirts related to just game music in general.
Give them your money.
Yes, send your money. You can also go to Patreon, patreon.com/rhythmandpixels. And as a member there of any level, you get access to monthly live stream shows. We're going to have a live stream show probably at the last week of this month, maybe after Thanksgiving for our North American listeners. And probably the next week is going to be another live show, but for everybody, which will be our end of the year kind of review blowout.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge this year.
We pick our top 10 tracks maybe
from the year.
Yeah, for the whole year. It's going to be tough to choose, but it'll be a good time. That'll be a free live stream. Also, as a member of Patreon at the higher tiers, you get cool stuff like stickers, and there's mugs, and there's exclusive T-shirts, and there's some fun stuff you can do with the radio station as well. You can put your own promos in there or any advertisements that you want in there. We'll just pop them in there. We also like to thank all of our Patreon members who were at the highest levels at the end of every episode. First, want to thank Brooke, Frankly Zappa, and Khalid. Thank the three of you very, very much for supporting our show. It means a huge, huge, huge deal to me and Purnell.
Greatly appreciated.
We want to thank the user number one. We're gonna call them user one.
Not number one.
Number one. So I want to thank number one. Kristen, GameFan44. Thank you to Martyrus, host of the ReVGM podcast we had on last week.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome guy. Thank you to Mike Myers. Congratulations. Thank you to Ulf Person, Thank you, Vashin8060, Alex Messenger, host of the AVGM Journey, Brian Pitt, Cameron Worma, Carlos, Kung Fu Carlito, co-host of the Heroes 3 podcast. Thank you to Chris Weisner, a.k.a. Musashi219.
The wise guy. Keep on moving, buddy.
Yeah, keep getting through that game. Thank you to Christopher Shenstrom, Chuck Kowalski, Davey Cakes, David Taylor, Enchilada Brigol, Harold Howard, Triple Jeff, Justin Schneider, host of XVGM Radio, Keith Shusterman, Dr. Michael Bridgewater, Rage Cage, host of the VG Emporium podcast, a fantastic show. Thank you to Reinhard Zelkova, Sleepy S'more, Steve Miller, Taco, Ed Wilston, host of the VG Embassy, our podcast father, and Zach Thornbach.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank all of you and many, many more for your support of our show. Just $1 a month feeds a hungry Purnell.
I get so hungry.
Campbell's soup. So yeah, that's the end of our show. And I don't know if we have it on the docket for next week. And we also, with Thanksgiving coming up, I think we have to kind of move some schedules around.
Yeah,
but we'll figure that out.
Yeah, or just like I don't know.
I got
a gluttony mixtape.
I got 16 people coming into this house. So even the day before is right out.
There you go. The mixtape can be giving the tracks dedicated to people we give thanks to.
I'll bring everybody. I'll bring my whole family downstairs, and they'll just record with us. Yeah.
This show we're getting dragged into. How much wine is left?
Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, that's not actually not a good idea. Think about it. So thank you again, Chris, for hanging out with us for so long tonight. It's been a blast.
Thanks for having me.
You're always welcome. It was a pleasure, friend.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you very much for listening to the show. Rhythm and Pixels. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Purnell.
Have a great week.
And remember, this whole episode was about difficult games. Difficulty doesn't have to be hard mode. Difficulty is just what's difficult for you. But the overall idea and the reason behind referencing this is to say, maybe, especially in games where they let you to change difficulty in the middle of the game if it's a little bit too much for you, maybe every once in a while kind of push the envelope a little beyond your comfort zone just to see how you handle it, how you muster up. Because even though sometimes the general impressions that you want to get through the game as quickly as possible to move on to the next big franchise, or you just want the least resistance possible, there is a dopamine hit that does come from taking on a challenge and overcoming it. And I'll be honest with you, when it's a challenge that's not tethered to your life, there's a lot less stress involved when the challenge isn't putting food on your family's table. It is more about just saving this village by defeating a monster with 500 more hit points than he would have had before. I don't know. Just try. Do more. Give it a shot. And just know that if it comes down to it, you can always give it back.